What if I told you that our entire understanding of how the brain learns to move is right in the middle of a massive revolution? Seriously. For decades, we kind of held these beliefs about brain injury and recovery as fixed truths. But the new science, it's showing us that the brain isn't some static machine. It's a dynamic, learning system, and it is constantly adapting to the world around it. And, that one shift in thinking, it changes everything.
So, let's dive into this with a condition that's really at the heart of this whole revolution: cerebral palsy, or CP. Now, the clinical definition, it points to a really key phrase: a non-progressive disturbance in the developing brain. For decades, that one little phrase shaped everything. Non-progressive was taken to mean that, since the initial brain injury itself doesn't get worse, a person's physical potential was also pretty much static or fixed from that point on.
And this leads us to the big central question of this whole explainer. If the original brain injury is fixed, does that mean a child's potential is also set in stone? For years, the unspoken answer was pretty much, yeah. But as we're about to see, science tells a very, very different story.
Okay, so the learning brain. The first major piece of the puzzle came from this huge shift in neuroscience itself. We moved away from seeing the brain as like a hardwired computer and started to understand it as this incredibly dynamic, plastic, and always changing organ, especially in the earliest stages of life.
So how does the brain actually learn anyway? It's not born fully wired. At birth, it's just this bustling network of overconnectivity, totally full of potential. Then, experience takes over. During that critical first year, every single interaction starts to shape this network. It's kind of like a sculptor carving away at a block of stone. The pathways we use get stronger, and the ones we don't, they get pruned away. This intense, experience-driven wiring makes early life the most powerful window of opportunity for change we have.
The principle guiding this whole wiring process is a really cool idea called neural Darwinism. See, the brain doesn't learn from a set of instructions. It learns through selection. Just like in nature, it tries out countless different movement patterns. And based on feedback from the world, what works, what gets the job done, it selects and strengthens the most successful pathways. It literally learns by doing. And this is where the theory connects to real life. The environment is the training ground for this neural Darwinism. It means a child's development isn't just about their own internal wiring. It means you could have two kids with the exact same condition who have vastly different outcomes. Why? Because the home, the school, the community, that's the arena where the brain selection process actually plays out. So if the brain learns through active environmental selection, what does that mean for therapy? Well, it means we have to shift. We have to move away from trying to passively fix movement and start creating opportunities for the brain to actively solve problems for itself.
And the contrast between the old and new ways, it's really night and day. The old way was often controlled by the therapist, moving a child's limbs, trying to impose a normal pattern. But the new way, it flips that script completely. It's child-initiated. The focus shifts to a goal that's meaningful to them, and the learning happens through the child's own trial and error. It's not about correcting their movement. It's about empowering their brain to find its own unique solutions. A fantastic example of this in action is something called constrained-induced movement therapy, or CIMT. So, for a child who has weakness on one side of the body, what you do is gently constrain the stronger arm, maybe in a mitt or soft cast. This forces the brain to stop relying on its go-to pathways and to really intensively practice tasks with a weaker arm. And the result? The brain is driven to literally build and strengthen brand new neural pathways to make that weaker arm work. You're actually inducing the brain to rewire itself. It's incredible.
And look, this principle, forcing the brain to adapt, it's not just for hands and arms, not at all. The power of active, intensive, task-specific practice is universal. It applies just as profoundly to one of the biggest challenges of all, learning to walk.
And the evidence for this is just stunning. Check this out. There was a landmark study with infants with Down syndrome. One group got the standard physical therapy. The second group got the exact same therapy, but with one small addition, just 8 minutes a day of practice on a tiny treadmill. The result? The treadmill group started walking independently, on average 101 days earlier. That's the power of focused, active practice right there.
This revolution in how we approach therapy has also led to a revolution in why we do it. The ultimate goal has shifted from this narrow, clinical focus on perfect movement to a much broader and, frankly, more human-centered one.
A framework from the World Health Organization really helps explain this. See, good therapy can't just stop at the body function level, like reducing muscle stiffness. That's only the first step. The goal is to use that improvement to help a person with their daily activities, like walking or getting dressed. And that goal exists for just one reason: to enable full participation in life, going to school, playing with friends, being part of a community. That is the true measure of success.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. A child's real goal isn't some clinical metric on a chart. It's never just about having a better gait pattern. It's about what that movement lets them do. In other words, the goal is to be able to play soccer at recess with their friends. That is participation. That is the point.
And here's where this story becomes a lesson for every single one of us. Because the principles discovered by studying the brains of children with motor challenges are, in fact, the universal principles of how all human brains learn new motor skills.
I mean, think about learning any new skill yourself. A sport, an instrument, even a new dance move. You don't learn because someone moves your limbs for you, right? No. You learn by actively problem solving, driven by a goal that is meaningful to you. You get better at something specific by practicing that specific thing. And all the while, your brain is just constantly adapting. These aren't special rules for therapy, they are the rules for learning, period.
So the takeaway is pretty clear. What we discovered by studying brains facing huge challenges has revealed the fundamental truth for all of us. The lessons of active practice, meaningful goals, and adaptation, they aren't just for therapy. They are the blueprint for how every human brain learns to master the physical world.
And that leaves us with a final, empowering question. Knowing that our brains are built to learn and adapt through interaction with our surroundings, how can we, as parents, teachers, friends, and community members, build worlds that don't just accommodate, but that actively challenge, adapt to, and empower the learning brain in all of us?